today we have Richa Goswami. Richa has been an education worker and researcher since 2008. She currently works with Educo India, and she has led intervention projects with the government and private schools of Udaipur city, and has recently completed her PhD from DIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, in the area of quality education. Welcome to the Leaders for Impact series, Richa.
Hi, Santosh.
And we look forward to learning from your experiences in the social sector. So I will be asking you some questions. Most of it are very comfortable questions. So, so whenever so you feel free to answer the way you want. Right?
Sure.
So my first question would be that whoever is watching this would like to learn about Educo. So if Educo India, so if you could just share a bit about that.
Yeah. So, Santosh, Educo India is basically it is a global development corporation and cooperation, and it works basically in 14 countries right now. In India, we work in liaison with different partners. In some other countries, Educo works directly as an implementing agency also. So when I say we work in liaison with partners, basically we work with local NGO partners in India, conceptualize the projects with them, and provide financial support. And the field level implementation is taken care of by the partners. The areas of work for Educo are education, child rights, and child protection and governance. So these are the areas that we work in. Right now, till last year, we were working basically in Maharashtra, and we were working in 6-7 districts of Maharashtra. And from this year, we have expanded to Odisha and Karnataka as well. What else can I tell you about Educo? Yeah, an important fact. Educo has been working in India since 1998 now. So it has been many years, and our primary model right in the beginning was of sponsorship. So we have 3 partners with whom we have sponsorship projects. So Save the Children India in Mumbai and Pune, Matru Chhaya in Palghar, and Pratham in Pune rural area. So initially we had a sponsorship model only, but now we are more into a development model where we have partners who take care of the sponsorship project, but we also have partners with whom we have development projects. So that's basically what Educo is.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's quite insightful. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I was just adding that. So that is Educo, but my work in Educo is a very limited segment in it. So I work as the education specialist there. And an educational specialist would imply that I work with partners, only those partners that work in the field of education, and I help conceptualize their education interventions, make sure that the intervention is on ground, going in the way it is supposed to go. So those kinds of things. Yeah.
Great, and you have been very passionate about education, and since 2008 you have been in this field. So what really drew you to this sector?
So I am basically by discipline also an educationist. I've done my graduation in elementary education. I've done my master's in elementary education. But when I was doing my graduation, one thing was sure of was that I don't want to teach in schools. So although I am a trained teacher, but one realization that I had during that training period was that I don't want to teach in school. And I would probably have left the field of education also. But so I actually did a very interesting course, Santosh. There is a course in Delhi University called Bachelor's of Elementary Education, and it is a 4-year course. So it really inducts you into the field, helps you understand it as a discipline. So it is not just a teacher training course, it really prepares you to understand the field of education. So when I was doing that course in the 4th year, we have a very intensive internship. So usually teacher training courses have internships of 2 months. But in this course, we have internships which are there. In first year, you go for a few weeks. In second year, you go for a few weeks. And in fourth year, you spend almost 4 or 5 months in schools. And you also take up research projects. So when I was working on a research project in education, that's when I kind of realized that, education has more to offer than teaching in a school. And I decided to stay on in the field of education. So all these years I have been working in different areas, and also working with schools and with school teachers. Yeah, my core interest in education was in education related research. So that is what kind of made me stay in the field.
Right. So are these courses still active? And in Mumbai, do you have something similar as well?
So we don't have a similar course in Mumbai, but there are some courses that regional institutes of education. So for example, you have NCRT at the national level, and then you have 4 regional institutes of education in 4 parts of the country. So these 4 regional institutes do offer 4-year training courses. Now, some private universities like probably Amity offers have started offering courses like BLEd. But this kind of an intensive course it remains in Delhi University. Okay. So, but based on that course, the National Curriculum Framework of Teacher Education has incorporated a lot of elements, and those elements are becoming parts of the B.Ed courses across India.
Okay, great. That's interesting for anyone who wants to pursue this. And education is such a field, and given the kind of interaction that you have and the organizations you work with, so do you recall which was the first like wow moment that you had when you got into it and say, okay, now I'm happy. So
now I'm happy.
or was it like, wow, okay, now I can feel the impact of this? Yeah.
Okay. I think one wow moment for me was, I mean, even before I started working, as I mentioned, when I did my research project in my 4th year of graduation, that was the first time when there was rigorous data collection that I did and data analysis. And I realized that when you start looking at data in a particular way, it starts telling you stories. So that because somehow the school education that we have, the way we do projects in schools, we do a lot of referencing, but it is not in the manner where you are expected to do any kind of analysis. So you have things and you present those things, but you don't engage with it to say something new, even a small insight. So that is not there in school education. So that was the first time in my 4th year that I worked on a topic and started telling something which. So in social science, you don't really end up saying something greatly new. I mean, ऐसा नहीं है कि आप एकदम ही कुछ ground breaking बोल दोगे, but वो आपके लिए बहुत नया होता है. और and the way you look at it adds a new parameter to a known field. So my research at that time was on classroom disciplining strategies and this entire idea that how teachers use tactics in the classroom which effectively lead to a lot of silencing that happens, and the entire education process is a lot of silencing. So apart from the fact that there is explicit silencing, finger on your lips, apart from that, there is a lot of other things happening in the classroom, and they're also in a way part of the pedagogy that lead to silencing. So we all have experience of being on the other side of the table. Now, being students, we have all experienced those strategies. But when you start looking at it, so for me, that systematically looking at classroom observations, making sense of it, doing the exercise of coding, that I think was a wow moment. So, and it had the impact that it kind of, made me feel that this is what I would like to do. I would like to make sense of things in this manner. So
yeah, and data can actually challenge your thought process where you're imagining something, and then when you look at data and number, it might just throw you off a bit when you're, and may make you question what you really are you believe currently. So that is right. Yeah, that's true. And this is actually great insights for parents as well, right? Because I think they need to look at, and I see that your thesis was around that as as well?
No, the thesis is actually on a different idea. So in current times, I'm not sure whether this would be a right time to talk about it, but if you tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free. Yeah,
Okay, so basically in current times, the discourse has shifted to some extent. About 10 years ago, we were very concerned about universalization of education, 10-15 years ago. But right now we are because as a country, we have achieved a lot of, we are able to bring a lot of students to schools now. So now the discourse has shifted to the idea of quality, and which is what the policies, the newspaper discourse, the academic discourse, and the parental discourse is around. कि अच्छी शिक्षा क्या है और हम अच्छी शिक्षा दे पा रहे हैं या नहीं दे पा रहे हैं. So whether so this thesis is about parental perceptions of quality education, because parents are a lot of times used as a pawn also to push certain policy ideas. That there is a lot of policy demand. It is done extensively by private schools, but it is also done by the public school setup. So if we want to understand what parents really understand by quality, so this research was basically around that what do parents feel, and is it even correct to use a homogeneous term like parents, because there's no homogeneous category of parents.
That's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, this was basically.
Okay. Now I'm going to shift to something which is a bit more operation on the ground, considering that you work with a lot of NGOs, okay, and it is very important to impart quality. You need to have good quality within your organization, which means you need to have a highly motivated and high quality team. What do you see as since you work with various organizations, when you look at the teams, how do you see them motivate and build a very strong team to further their cause?
Right. So so basically, I think there are two things to it. One is whether what kind of people we are able to attract to our organization, to our teams, and how do we ensure that when very interested people come to work with you, they remain interested. I mean, so I would start by something a bit negative. When young teachers come out of their training courses and they're about to join schools, they don't start with this understanding कि हम school में जाएंगे और कुछ थोड़ा बहुत कर लेंगे, right? They want to make a change. Most people want to make a change. Most people want to make sure that when they the students that come in contact with them, they they are able to make a positive change in their lives. But it only takes a few years in the system, and specific more, this would be more true for the public system, but this is not just for the public system. It is true for any kind of school setup, that teachers start losing motivation. So when people join workforce, or when people join new teams, they join with a lot of drive and passion. So the first thing is to have an alignment. So you get people who are aligned to your cause. And in development sector, in organizations like ours, we are in the business of making change. We realize that there are issues and we are in the business of making change. So it is important to get people who run with that drive. Also, the sad part is that development sector doesn't offer good salary. So you really have to attract people who are working with some other passion. So so that is, I think, the first thing, that you are able to, you are able to make an honest, pitch about the work that you do, and you get people who are really aligned with your vision. That is, I think, the first thing. And the second thing, which is about keeping people motivated in teams. Again, I would start by saying that, considering this is my personal belief and my experience of working with large teams, is that people usually work for their own personal satisfaction. At the end of the day, you need to feel that what you did made sense and you contributed positively. So I think there are two important things. One is that people should feel ownership of the work that they're doing, and they should feel valued people in the teams. So if we are able to do that, I think we would be able to retain people, and also not retain in the sense of just they're staying on, but they're staying on with the passion that they came with. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
these two
Yeah.
things are important. If I would, a third thing that I would add is that almost all of us have a need for personal growth as well. So there should be some kind of personal growth, some opportunity to learn something challenging, which is different from the mundane, has to be there. If that's not there, if you're expected to do the same, there's no reason to stay on.
Absolutely. So I think it's about being alignment of purpose, if I were to use the term, right? So that is that, and the fact that you have to keep on pushing and challenging that individual. I think that is, those two are very, very essential. Speaking of challenge, COVID has really challenged us over the last couple of years. I mean, year and a half plus now, right? And all of us have faced the brunt of it, especially the social sector. So how have all of you coped with this pandemic and the ongoing impact?
So there are two kinds of approaches that I've seen that our partners have taken up, and Educo has taken up. One is of immediate relief. So like last year, there were relief projects that we conceptualized, and there was a lot of dry ration distribution through the partners. In the second wave this year also, there was that kind of exercise. So that is one level of thing. But the other more important strategy is to understand how this long period of effective closure, there has been an absolute closure for schools, but there has been closure of other things as well. So how this entire period is having long-term impacts. So and our partners have been very I would say perceptive about these things. So there are strategies which are coming out. For example, right in the beginning of the school closures last year, some of the partners started out with WhatsApp videos that they started sending. So even before the government schools or these big setups could realize that that is something that is needed, smaller NGOs are sometimes quicker in perceiving these things and making those changes. So that started happening. Some of the things that we are doing now, considering this effect has been very long, is that we have started opening community centers, because it is not possible to have big groups of children come to one place. In smaller communities, mohallas, we are identifying volunteers who can bring together 5-10 children and make sure that there is some continuity of education. So that is one thing that we are doing. The third thing which we have started is to have libraries of different kinds. So one partner is using these community centers as places where they have started keeping books, story books, books of different kinds, and encouraging the idea of reading. Because so this is something that we had started thinking, and only a couple of days back I saw this news article which mentions that there is about 82% of language loss that is being seen in primary grade children, and 92% of mathematics loss. So mathematics and languages are two things that it is also intuitive in a way. This big school closure will have impact. All of us know that when we have these summer vacations, which is only 1.5 months long, and children come back, the constant complaint that teachers have is, "Sab bhul kar aate hain." So when they will come back after 1.5 years or 2 years, definitely the gap would be very big. So they've started doing these community libraries. The other partner has started another very interesting thing, which is a mobile library. So they are converting a van into a library, which will have books and all, but it will also have other sports material, because rural children a lot of times don't have, I mean, they're creative, they have their own games, no doubt about it, but the kind of team building sports, sit down and play Ludo, four children engaged for 15 minutes, 20 minutes in something. So those kinds of things are not there. So this mobile library will have books, but it will also have badminton rackets and bat ball and indoor game, board games. So those kinds of things. And it would very soon start going to different villages. So sometimes the villages are very big areas. So to ensure that there is not too many children coming to one place, it will have different stops where it would go and stand. So these are some interesting strategies which are coming up. And many of these strategies, I think would continue after the schools open also. So, for example, this learning gap which is being created, and the out of school support which the learning centers would be able to provide, that's not something that we would be able to stop right after the schools open. There would have to be a sustained period of this support. Similarly, the libraries that we are opening is something I would imagine to go on for a very, very long time, because there are we don't have a concept of public libraries otherwise. So that is there. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that the field level staff in all these organizations are effectively very brave people. While most of the industries are able to have work from home, our industry does not really have that kind of, I mean, we could partially do work from home, but we don't have the choice. We have to step out and work in the community. So that, I think, is something which is there. Yeah. And we have to constantly acknowledge that if it is a difficult period for the beneficiaries that we have, it is a difficult period for us also and for our teams also. So I think that, working with the team with that understanding.
Right, absolutely. So adoption of technology has really peaked, I think, in this sector in the last 1.5 years. And a lot of what you actually said falls under the category of, what we call innovation, because that is innovating and finding ways to do things. So as an organization and what you see around, how do you plan, or how do you manage innovation within your partners? Or do you have any plan to have a structured innovation to keep pushing them to not wait for a challenging time?
So, Santosh, I think I would start by saying that innovation right now is also a very overused word. So, and a lot of times we also fall into this trap of trying to be innovative. So I would say the one very important thing that we have to be careful of is not to fall in that trap. So I think you don't have, in my understanding, you don't have to go out and be mindful of the fact that you are able to innovate. The basic thing remains that there are problems that we are able to identify in the challenging times and in normal times as well. As I said, that we are in the business of making change. So there are problems and we want to find solutions for them. So we identify the problems and we look for the solutions with a whiteboard approach. And when I say whiteboard approach, the board is white, but our minds are never white. We all come with our experiences, learnings that we have from other people's experiences also. So we bring all that to these brainstorming sessions, and we try and look for solutions. I think one important process that supports innovation is to have the process of finding solutions and decision making in a more decentralized and inclusive manner. Basically, bring in as many people as possible. When you have more people thinking about it, then you have more ideas coming in, more brains working on it, and at the same time, then there is no innovation team or senior management or a group of people whose responsibility it is to drive innovation. Then it becomes a part of the organizational culture. Everybody is responsible and everybody is thinking. So I think the more important thing is to create thinking individuals and to have space within your organization where thinking is possible. So when you are thinking, you come up with good solutions. So identifying correct problems is the key, basically.
Yeah, and what I've also seen is that empowerment plays a huge role in in bringing change, because when they feel empowered, then they know that okay, whatever they are proposing, or they'll be thinking in that way. Otherwise, they don't really feel challenged or motivated to offer a solution. So I think that's another
Absolutely.
thing with
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So
Yeah,
making sure that there is a culture where everybody is heard and given a reasonable, it is, my past organization where I used to work, there was a culture of fighting, and I fighting and arguing. And I think that is a very positive thing. So everybody needs to feel confident that it is all right to argue with everyone else till the time there is logic in what you are saying.
absolutely. I think that is the core. I think in personal and professional life, I would say. I think
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely.
So fighting is not. It should not be perceived negatively. It is basically two opinions clashing, and you find a logical solution to that particular argument or problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I mean that's really interesting. So you mentioned about your previous organization. Now I'll take you a bit into flashback. Okay, any first person, individual, boss, colleague who had really inspired you to look up and say, okay, this is a great leadership style, and I want to emulate that. Let me take you a bit.
So yeah, actually, I think I'm very clear. There are two people in my professional life that I just feel extremely lucky to have met, because they kind of influence you a lot. So one would be my boss from my previous organization, Professor Professor Hridaykan Diwan, and the other person would be my PhD supervisor, Professor Disha Navani. Uh, there are a lot of things that I have learned from them. A lot of things. The way it is said now that you are formed based on the teachers you have. So they have both been that kind of people for me. Two things that I would say that I really picked up, and they both have in loads. I would be happy to have in some amount also. One is that they're both extremely hardworking people. And when you see these people and you realize that they are so senior and they are so hardworking, it inspires you. So then you don't have to constantly, tell, they don't have to tell others. They're just doing their own work and you get inspired by it. When I had not even joined that organization, Vidya Bhavan, and I had gone there for some small research. It was 15th of August and they were working. I was like, 15 August, public holiday, what are you doing? So, and then he was like, हाँ मतलब तो हर साल ही आता है 15. So, although I don't think that's a great idea to not have chuttis at all, but that's what I saw, that he is extremely happy doing what he's doing, and that is why he just keeps on doing. So it is the same with both of them. So I've really learned that it is important to work hard. It is important to work hard at whatever age or stage in life or professional stage you are in. There is no alternate to it. The only thing that you can hope for, which is a very cliched thing also, is that you should be able to enjoy it. So that is there. And the other thing that I've learned from both of them is genuine concern for people that you work with. So they are both people who are bothered about others, who are good human being. If there is somebody who's not, if there is a problem in anybody's life, they are the kind of people that you would go and sit down and talk to. I mean, I've had heart to hearts with both of them, a lot of rona dhona, everything, and I later on realized that it is not my special relationship. That is how a lot of people are with them. So the fact that there are these people, there are these good people who are bothered about other people, and when you are in trouble, you feel like reaching out to them, talking to them. No solution comes, but just the fact that you talk to them, you would probably feel a little better. I think that is an important thing. And I sometimes think that we definitely need more people like that in our society. But the only way of having more people is becoming those people.
Oh
So
yes, absolutely. So it
basically, we
actually
just have to
brings.
try to be like that.
Yeah. So I was reading somewhere that when Walmart was a 1,000 member organization. Um, like Walmart, the owner himself could be actually reached by every single person. I mean, he would actually have that bandwidth to have the personal time for everyone, whoever
Yeah.
wanted to speak, and that kind of drives and motivates people around as well. So I think, and yes, we have to learn from them and then move forward, which brings me to the another very strong word, which is leadership values, which which so what leadership values have has really helped you in your journey so far?
Um, okay. So one thing that I have learned, and I try and remember it constantly, is that one sorry, one basic tenet is that when you're working with people, try and share as much as possible and share as honestly as possible. So a lot of times we fall into this trap that, considering I am in this position where I am managing a team, I am responsible for a project, whatever feedback, negative messages or anything I'm getting is for me, and I'm supposed to shield others from it. And or I have to give a managed version of it. So I've learned from some amazing seniors that I've had that is a very flawed idea. You basically need to have people around you whom you can trust, and not be trapped by this idea that there is a managed version of things that you need to present to others. Have faith in people and present everything. Share as much as possible. When there is more information available, when people are aware of the larger vision that we are working for, there is a culture of openness. There is a lot of ownership that it brings, and people are ready to step up, which would not happen if there isn't open communication. So one thing that I've learned and I live by, or at least I try and live by, is share as much as possible, as honestly as possible. So that's one thing. The second thing, which I again feel comes from my educational background, is that when we are working in schools, or we are interacting with teachers, we always emphasize the fact that all children can learn. And all children can learn all subjects. These flawed ideas that maths is for certain children and science is for certain children, or there are some children who are slow learners or some children who are fast learners, these are all categories which are extremely harmful. But when we are working with adults, we kind of forget that. And we believe that there are some people who are born with certain talents. So I think that is something that we need to challenge and constantly remind ourselves that all people can learn. And people learn when they feel there is need to learn, when they're internally motivated. So all you can do is you make sure that that their growth is something that they value. So that culture is something that you can support, but you have to go with this belief that people are rational beings and they want to learn and they can learn. So I think that is something that we need to remember. And I think the third thing that I would say that I consider an important leadership value is that we work with people, and when people come to work, they bring their whole selves to work. So that implies, and also that if we look at the amount of time we spend at our workplaces, I mean, most of our lives we spend in a day, we spend such a long time there. So these are the people that, so they need to have those personal connects at workplace. The sensitivity to understand that when there are issues at home, then those issues will impact productivity, and being aware of those issues. So you need to have a culture where people talk about these things. So if I have a problem, I should be able to talk about it. If I find out that there's somebody unwell in in my colleagues, this thing, so it should affect me. It should bother me. When I get up in the morning, I should have the need to find out key. And that only happens when there is a reasonable personal connect. That cannot happen because I tell myself that, this is something I have to do or I should do. It will not happen. It will only happen automatically if there is a personal connect that I have. So if we can ensure that we are able to build teams, and if we are ourselves individuals who are bothered, so I think these are the 2-3 things that
That's great.
That I would say are my learnings also.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful, and I have a leading question for the last point. But what struck me is, very interestingly, it just struck me that when you talk about this whole attitude of leaders trying to protect the people who work, I think somewhere it also stems from the our culture, right? Our families, as in our parents, where they try to shield us from the problem. We never got exposed to problem. I think
Right.
maybe that's the result of the way we have been brought up, where we don't want our children to be exposed to all problems, right? Or we generally just shield them from all problem. It's only the happy. So I think that is something which gets translated to our workplace also. And
Yeah.
of course, a lot of unlearning has to happen for leaders to accept and then open up and pass on. So I
Yeah.
think that is one.
So actually, leadership is also not an idea or concept which would be devoid of the cultural tenets, cultural, the culture that we are rooted in. So, and it's possible that just the fact that you're in a different culture, the leadership notions would change also.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the last point that you mentioned was, I see that people who love to work are the ones who they have this very core team. Even with a large organization, you build this very core network of people who you are really connected to, and you would do anything for them, and that's a huge symbiotic relationship. But how, given this current scenario where the human touch or the not coming to office factor exists, working from home exists, there is a bit of alienation which happens. So how do you keep your team motivated to have that kind of a bond, especially when it comes to new members in the team, and the acceptance and joining the pack? It's like a wolf pack, right? So then how are you doing that? How are you motivating your team members in the current environment?
So, Santosh, I am one of those people who joined the organization during the lockdown. I started working in Educo last April, and I did not have the opportunity to go to the office at all. Um, so, um, so as a result, there is a lot of it takes a lot of time for that kind of bonding to start happening, where you are able to just do chit chat with these people. And one thing that I used to realize in our in my initial months is that sometimes when we had these important meetings, we used to afterwards in our small team have a internal meeting as well, where we would just do a bit of gossip around it. कि पता है meeting में हुआ क्या? And that as a new person, I used to find that extremely important. That is where I would feel that I am actually talking to people. Otherwise, you are only interacting about the agendas, the outcomes, कि हमारा proposal हो गया, report हो गया, so those kinds of things. You are only bothered. So these are the things that help you. This year, when the second wave hit, and it was a very difficult time for everyone. Even if some of us did not personally, something bad did not happen in our immediate families, still there was this period when almost every day you heard something, a friend that you had not met for some time, or that is when something started in our office. And I think it's amazing, and it is continuing. We started having our weekly meetings, 30 to 40 minutes, marked in the calendar for everybody every Tuesday, where we would just come and you would give a family update. घर में सब लोग कैसे हैं? And if there is any, a lot of times we just shared these things that this happened, I heard this news, or we started sharing our anxieties, and that is when all of us started relating to each other at a very different level. And we have continued those meetings. So now we don't have so much anxiety to share, and we are not seeking that kind of support from each other. But sometimes we are able to have a singing session. Sometimes we are able to share some poetry, some literature with each other. So in a way, I would say that this is this is a digital alternate to the chai ka cup charcha. So so when 4:30 tea comes in most of the offices, that's when you leave the laptop and you stand somewhere and you are able to connect with people. So this 4:30 meeting every week is that common chai time for us, and it has helped all of us immensely. One more thing that we did is that we had a session on mental health for our team, one which was only focused on our own mental health, to understand what are the signs of stress. How do you just be easy on yourself, and a second session to understand how this entire thing is affecting children. And we did a similar exercise with our partner organizations and their field staff also. A first session, which is just for ourselves, and a second session to understand the signs of stress and how to reach out to children. I would say that on one hand, it made us all more aware, which was good. But it also brought this idea of being sensitive and being aware of mental health related issues for each other. So as a community of people working together, we just became more conscious of this thing for each other. So that level of empathy, I think, increases when you start systematically talking about these things. So this in a way helped.
Yeah. So I mean, I in all my conversation, I have a section specifically for mental health. I'm glad you already covered it. But I'm very curious to know, was all of this organic or was it driven by a certain entity in the organization? Does it have to be a very conscious effort? I mean, how should organizations put a structure to this? Because
so in our organization, I would say it was a very conscious thing. And when this was initiated, so our country director basically started talking about this, and he brought this up. He said that we would have this kind of a session for our team, and we would have a similar session then for our partner teams also. And I would say I was one of the skeptics. Because I kind of felt that, if you start talking too much about these things, then you have that second year syndrome. Then you start looking for symptoms that you have. Till the time you're blissfully ignorant, you're ignorant. But I realized when this session happened that, how unaware we are about this. And just the fact that we are unaware, we have our own, biases to this. So becoming aware is an important thing. And a lot of times these things don't happen organically. And in current times, when ours is a very small office, Santosh, we are a team of 11 people only. And in this team of 11 people, many of us have joined in the last 1.5 years. So we have never met each other. So the possibility of this happening organically was very bleak. So I'm actually very glad that there was somebody in the office who thought that this kind of a team building exercise is needed, and this weekly time needs to be blocked, where we just where we come without an agenda, because all the meetings where we are talking to the same people all the time. But all those meetings, there is an agenda that we are talking to. We talk to the same people in this half an hour, 40 minutes, sometimes 1 hour that we have, and we are different people, all of us. So for us, it was individual driven, definitely.
And this is a huge takeaway for anyone, at any stage of leadership. If they have a team, this is a huge takeaway, to be very consciously aware and not wait for somebody else to address this matter, because it is come out. It is not that it wasn't there before pandemic, but this has come out as a need even more prominently. So no conversation around leadership is complete without really reflecting on the toughest decision that any leader has to make. So what is the toughest decision that you had to make in your career? Because that's reality, right? You have to face it. It's not always haha he's. And so yeah. What's your story?
Okay, so for me, the toughest decision was to to downsize the team that I had built over years. So there was a project that so in development sector, most of the projects are funding driven. And when funding suddenly stops for a project, you have to let go of the team. So there was a project that was running from 2009 to 2015, and we had to stop it in 2015. There were a lot of people that we had onboarded over the years, and every recruitment that you do is to some extent a handpicking. I mean, you meet a lot of people and you decide this person is good, and you see these people growing, over the years. I think letting go of people is the toughest thing, and and it is not just that you are disbanding the entire team. You are also sometimes in a position where you can choose a few. How do you choose those few? How do you make sure that it is not your your subjective personal liking or disliking for a person that is affecting this decision? So although I think of this time and this period as the toughest for me, but I also think that you kind of make this entire thing a bit objective to the extent possible, at least by bringing in more people. So you keep bringing in more people into this decision making process, that who should stay and who should be let go. But yeah, whenever there are these times when you have to let go of people that you have chosen, you have helped given some kind of mentoring to them, help them grow in some ways. You have learned a lot with them. So I think that is the toughest thing for anybody to do.
Yeah.
And currently with the pandemic, a lot of people have done this. A lot of projects have, even in NGOs, a lot of donors have backed out. The funds have severely reduced in many places. So this, and in any case, letting go is difficult, but in these times it is even more difficult, because you know that this means so much to the person that you are asking to leave. So,
and a lot of incidences where people are faced with this dilemma, challenge, and they've actually had to do downsizing not just once, multiple times in this period. Okay, maybe 2 times, and it's very, very stressful for them. But this is important, and I've also had leaders reach out to me saying that, hey, I've got these people, they're really good. Can you find? So they're taking the effort to really find opportunities for the people that he has to let go. So there's significant ownership. So while this challenge also exists, but what can you do as a leader to ensure that you treat them in a much more humane way? I think that's something which is a huge takeaway. So Richa, I like this concept was awesome. Okay, I'm so far. It's been like very open, straight to the point. A lot of learnings for me as well. The last question, okay, before we wrap, is the people who are watching this, how can they really contribute to the purpose or the cause that you represent, or the people, the partners, not necessarily just Educo India, but what can they do? How can they contribute? Just to share your views on that.
Okay, so basically, as I mentioned, we are a child rights based organization, and we work on the issue of education, children in governance, and child protection. So I think one of the things is that that all of us need to be more aware of the it would require conscious effort from all of us to be more aware of the child protection issues, to start understanding them, start understanding our responsibilities towards this idea, educate ourselves, and for that, in fact, I would see if I can share it with you at some point of time. We have recently commissioned a study, and we are producing a manual to make sure that how anybody, when sees a child rights violation, is able to make sense that which organizations or which state bodies to reach out, what is the law about it, and what any person can do. So we need to first of all understand that this is a collective responsibility. There are not some people who have been given this responsibility. All children stay safe and all children get education is a collective responsibility. So I would somehow share it with you, and if you can share it with others, that would be something that would be helpful. The other thing is that this year we have taken up a campaign which is say no to child labor. The pandemic has, we are all aware of it, has washed away the efforts of many years in terms of children coming to school. It is pushing a lot of children out of school. A lot of children are going back to child labor. There are a lot of issues of child abuse coming up. Child marriage has increased significantly. So we have taken up a pledge campaign to reach out to as many people as possible for the to be aware of and to raise their voices against child labor. So I would like to actually share that pledge link with you, and if all those people who see this can go ahead, sign the link, and also motivate others to sign, because I think the first thing is all of us becoming aware of it, all of us acknowledging the problem that is there. So I think this gesture of signing the link would be one step in that direction, and that is what I would urge people to do.
Thank you so much, Richa. I think I'm sure people, when we'll be putting this out, we will surely share the links that you are talking about. And within our network, of course, we will do the needful. The key here and the key takeaway is that you have to keep on educating yourself, even as parents, as citizens, to be much more responsible. Thank you so much, Richa, for taking time out. I think this was fabulous, and thank you once again. Yeah.
Thank you, Santosh, for inviting me to talk. And as I started by saying that any formal interaction kind of makes you feel a bit nervous, but one thing is that talking to you just seemed easy. Again, I would say that the digital mode at least allows for that even if you're not able to meet people, just the fact that you're seeing the face, you start connecting to the person and you're able to do it. So,
right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. Take care.